la Contufail will present the final remarks. This will be the outline of today's event. At the end, there will be space for questions from the audience in case you have any queries or doubts, or you just want to deepen some aspects. Thank you again to all of you for being here today. Arnold, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arnold Mugwagwa. I am a Zimbabwean PhD student of political studies at the University of Johannesburg. I currently reside in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm also a research fellow at the International Council for Human Rights and Peace, Politics and Peace. I'm going to be your moderator today. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow researchers, I'm honored to welcome you to this important webinar on global voices, women rights across the border. As we are gathered here today, we are reminded that the struggle for women rights in the global is a global one, transcending borders, cultures, and continents. From the streets of Joburg to the villages of Zimbabwe, where I come from the cities of New York to the towns of Nairobi, women voices are rising, demanding justice, equality, and freedom. But despite the progress that we have made towards women and girl rights, women and girls continue to face daunting challenges, from violence and discrimination to economic inequality and lack of representation. Ladies and gentlemen, the statistics are stark. 1 in 3 women worldwide experience physical or sexual violence. Women are still holding only 24 of parliamentary seats global, and women participation in workforce is still lagging behind. Today, we will have the privilege of hearing from some researchers, from some researchers around the globe who will be who will share their presentation on women rights across borders. Our speakers will take us on a journey across borders. As I'm reminded that our organization takes from all continents, highlighting the complexities and nuances of women's rights in different contexts. So let us then listen, let us learn, and let us be inspired by global voices of women who are shaping the world we live in. It is my singular pleasure to introduce our first speaker. I hope I'm not butchering her, her name. Is this Shivai Chaudhry, who set the stage for our discussion. This is our first speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Shivai Chaudhry is a doctoral researcher at the Department of African Studies, University of Delhi, India. She's also a holder of a master's in political science from the University of Delhi and a bachelor's from Janki Devi Memorial College. She's also a research fellow at the International Council of Human Rights. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome her to the stage. Hello.
Okay, so yes, our first speaker, Ms. Gurleen Kaur, can go ahead and begin with her views and present her findings. We are very glad to have here Ms. Gurleen Kaur.
Hello, am I audible enough?
Yes, I would please, if it's possible, because this webinar will probably end on YouTube, it would be amazing if you could turn on your camera when you speak so that we can see you while you talk, and it would be even better for YouTube, if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay, this was the first speaker was supposed to be Mrs. Is it Mrs. or Miss Shivai Chaudhry? But since maybe Gurleen Kaur can go first.
Yes, Miss Gurleen is the first one. She was speaking. So, Miss Gurleen, are you there? Okay, I think Miss Gurlin might have problems with connection, so she might join again later, and we can go on with the second speaker of the day. Moderator, you can call her. Thank you.
Okay.
You can introduce her, Ariane, tell her bio, and then call her to this to join the stage. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now because she was scheduled to have presented third, but let me just introduce her. Ariane J. Fabregas is also a juris doctoral candidate at Arellano University School of Law. Uh, uh, she's an advocate for she advocates for inclusivity, governance, and innovation. She's also an alumni of the NUSCIL Asian Law Academy in Singapore. She is also a research fellow at the International Council of Human Rights, Peace and Politics. Uh, if she's ready, I think she's ready because I can see her. She's. You can continue. You can start.
All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me clearly. And thank you so much for that kind introduction, Arnold, and for Miss Camila for being hands on. And yes, of course, I can share my screen here. Let me take a moment. For a moment, I'm just finding my I'm just finding my um, presentation. Okay. Here, can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we
Yeah, I
can.
think we can.
Okay, great. um, can you still see it as a whole, right? Because I cannot see the people, so I
Yes,
still want.
no problem. You can start presenting. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I still want to see the people from the or behind my presentation. So I'm gonna talk about the current landscape of women's rights in the Philippines and in the ASEAN. So right now, I think I will uh, move you to the Southeast Asian region. So I hope you will get any. I hope you will get an insights and ideas on how to navigate challenges or issues that women are experiencing globally or regionally. So here, uh, first off, I will talk about the the some of the achievements that the Philippines have with regards to women's rights or how the Philippines navigated or advanced women's rights here in the Philippines. So first off, we have our Magna Carta Women. So this is a law with regards, or this law aims to um, um, like have a gender equality and to have a comprehensive discriminatory procedures for women here in the Philippines. Second is operationalized gender equality and women's empowerment, or GEWE, um, for 2019 to 2025, and um, this is some of has become a guide for gender and development plans and budgets. And lastly, an allocation of at least 5% of government agency budgets is now supporting these programs since 1995. However, although despite all the progress that has been made in the Philippines, there are still, of course, challenges. And as a woman, we for the longest time, we are experiencing this um, discrimination and harassment or gender violence or harassment, and at least um, one of five Filipinos are of women are experiencing violence and harassment at work. And with regards to gender pay gap, there are women earning 18.4% less than men in digital jobs as of 2022. So apologies for the typo in my presentation, but there's still an ongoing struggle against stereotypical beliefs and cultural practices that regulate women to secondary roles in society. So this means, or in other words, there are barriers that, despite the progress, we are still experiencing this challenges. So, what are the barriers that we're experiencing? For example, the cultural barriers. So, stereotypical beliefs about women's role in society. So, for example, women cannot lead, or women can only do things like in a very traditional way, or something, or sometimes women are just being set aside or being sidelined because um m- we are always perceived as weak. So another thing is that cultural practices that obstructs the development of women's full potential to participate and contribute to development. And as we know, we all know that women can do so much more than what the society is telling us to do, and or what is society is dictating us to do. And with regards to women's rights in Southeast Asia, so there are legal frameworks that are embedded in the region, like the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, or CEDAW. So we are very much active with regards to CEDAW, and in economic impact, gender discrimination in Southeast Asia remains high compared to the rest of the world, and with and in economic cost of around 220 billion US dollars um, by 2030. So it really has a big impact economically, and on a personal level, like it really has so much effect to everyone else. So third is violence against women. So in during the COVID-19, we have seen, or there's a rise of gender-based violence with domestic abuse here in Southeast Asia. And I think the Philippines has also experienced it um, in a in a very alarming numbers. But in Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia, there are also reports that have been seen during COVID-19. And climate change, I think this is one of the emerging topics on how women would be affected on climate change, in the impending effects of climate change. And the political representation, of course, we need more women that would represent us here in the Southeast Asia, and of course around the globe. And we are still the numbers are still few in comparison to the men, or the rate of men who are politically leading, or who has a representation in their countries, or representation in different sectors. And lastly, cultural and religious factors. This um, um, rising conservatism, this can also translate to fundamentalism, and in some countries has led to implementation of laws that potentially can undermine women's rights. So, despite these challenges, women across Southeast Asia continue to break stereotypes, and there are a lot of uh, women leaders who are taking initiatives and lobbying laws, or locally or regionally or globally, in various fields, or in different areas, like politics, business, and environmental activism. So if you want to continue the conversation, so you can connect or you can screenshot this. And I know my time is limited to speak, so I hope we can connect and have a continuous conversation. Yeah, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Ariane. It was great hearing you. It was absolutely great hearing you. And with that, I suppose we can move on to our next speaker, Miss Gurleen Kaur. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. And you've already been introduced by a moderator, so the audience is caught up with regards to your qualifications. So once again, great having you here, Ms. Gurleen Kaur. The stage is yours. Please begin.
Sure. Thank you so much, firstly, to the organizers for providing me with this opportunity, as well as this platform to speak about such a vital issue. And I'm very glad to see that it's quite interactive so far. So for today, I would like to introduce myself. Everybody's quite aware of it. My name is Gurleen Kaur, and I'm currently working as a research associate. Currently, I'm based in Colombo, which is the capital city to the island nation of Sri Lanka. And on the lines of the same, I would like to be speaking about it when it comes to gender equality, resistance, and responsibility that the women have taken up in this island nation. So to begin with, I would like to say that in Sri Lanka itself, it has been a country which has come to terms with a nearly 3 decade long civil war, where scholars are still very often hesitant to deploy masculinities as a central conceptual framework while analyzing gender relationships in Sri Lanka. This what essentially means is that when we are talking and speaking about gender, we cannot really discard masculinities and the issues involved in it. Many debates on equality about gender, historically either have been about equality without gender or gender neutral equality, as in the case of Sri Lanka. In many countries, including Sri Lanka itself, gender equality is still seen just as a woman's business. Instead, indeed, most of the debates referring to gender responsibilities falling on women, as a women's responsibility to be speaking about it. And it has been seen that women's attempt has often been seen as a problem or an issue, rather than acknowledging the fact that it is the men's resistance to change this issue. When I speak of resistance, gender equality thus can be, it can mean different interpretations and can have different meaning to different people across the globe. For example, to some it could be implying towards gender quotas in representation. To some it could be about equal opportunities. To some it could be about the gender relations, be it in the fiasco of work, organizations, families, etc. And Sri Lanka, for that matter, I would like to point out that it is one of the first countries in Asia Minor to have granted women its voting rights in the year 1960. Rather, it was also one of the first nations to have elected a woman prime minister. So despite these important developmental successes, Sri Lanka still at the moment faces challenges to work towards greater competitiveness, inclusion of this gender, and the resilience that this gender offers. One of the key challenges right now that Sri Lanka faces is that of achieving gender equality. And I will be speaking about it in some time. So we see that in Sri Lanka, an organization by the name of Women Business and Law captured 2 reforms over the last 50 years, which were affecting the laws and the measures that are being taken up in the area of workplace and marriage indicators. The very first law that was observed stated that, it was in 1995 when the country finally criminalized sexual harassment through an amendment to the Sri Lankan Penal Code. And it was only later in 2005 that we see that the Sri Lankan Parliament took another step towards protecting women from gender-based violence when it unanimously passed the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act. So the law provides for protection orders in this case of sexual harassment, but physical violence, and which are considered as penal offences in Sri Lankan law, are not directly linked to the protection order and application to the criminal justice process. Coming to, very recent 2024, now I would be focusing upon how women have taken up the responsibility in their own hands and can be seen as the women at the forefront. So 2024 in itself was a very historic year for the women politicians in Sri Lanka. It was during the November elections that 24 women were elected as the country to the country's parliament. And along with it, we see that a woman got the second highest preferential votes in the history of Sri Lankan elections so far. And she became the prime minister by the name of Harini Amarasuriya, who's not just a lawyer, but is also the country's first women or female prime minister for that matter since the year 1994. So the share of women in parliament rose from 5.3% to a stark difference of 10.7%. And it is only in recent years that women politicians in Sri Lanka have been trained in their role as decision makers, as well as in networking and confronting to the media and discriminatory practices. So seeing these women as leaders could be a very turning point and a crucial point, as they often act as role models to the other citizens of the country. Very recently, a walk to raise awareness around gender-based violence was also conducted in the capital city, Colombo, where we see that the theme was towards a gender-based violence-free Sri Lanka, safe public spaces for all. And during this walk, the iconic landmark building was lit up in orange to signify how a future free from violence against women and girls could be achieved in Sri Lanka. It was organized by the United Nations, the government of Sri Lanka, as well as the Forum Against Gender-Based Violence, bringing together various stakeholders, influential stakeholders, to raise awareness and drive tangible action towards ending this gender-based violence, with special attention on fostering safe and inclusive public spaces for women and girls across the country. According to a report by the UNFPA, 90% of Sri Lankan women have been reported to have faced sexual harassment in public buses and trains, while 1 in 4 have reported experiences of physical or sexual violence since the age of 15. So this event marked, as a part of the event, over 400 participants, including the Prime Minister, important female ministers from the parliament, as well as, stakeholders and representatives from the development sector, from civil society organizations, members from the public took part in it. A series of powerful stop and reflect videos were launched at the event, presenting real-life scenarios on gender-based violence and sexual harassment that women face while commuting in public transports and public institutions itself. The event also included a forum theater where performances on the same were put up. And throughout the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, a series of events, digital and public awareness campaigns took place to raise awareness around the issue and to mobilize and take action against violence against women and girls. So I would just like to conclude by saying that, while it is definitely very important to recognize the various structural changes that have been achieved over the years, there are still many oppressive mechanisms which we need to overcome, and doing so can be time-consuming task, particularly as we know that social structures and norms often take a lot of time to adapt and change. So to face these challenges, it is fundamental that inclusive environments, affirmative policies, and specific programs are created in order to promote gender equality and diversity in all spaces, as it can be seen in my country and my nation country of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gurleen Kaur. It was great hearing you speak about your nation and how things have been done in order to combat gender equality, but it still persists. But good that we are leading such webinars. We're here to combat the gender equality in this world. So it was great hearing you. Now we move on to Ms. Praise. Mr. Arnold, I request that you, yes, Ms. Camilla.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Naman, for stepping in and helping us. I think Arnold has the bios for each speaker and is prepared to introduce them. So he's going to introduce the next speaker, if that's okay.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Arnold. It's your turn to introduce the next speaker, the third speaker. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I think I'm having problems with my network here. Thank you so much for that insightful presentation. And I think we're going to be moving on to praise Adimaji, who is pursuing a master's degree in law at the University of Denver. She is also a holder of the Bachelor's of Laws and Master of Law from the University of Cape Town. majoring in constitutional and administrative law. She is also a research fellow at the International Council on Human Rights, Peace and Politics. Hi, ma'am, you can take the floor.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Can everyone hear me? Great. Good evening to all. Firstly, I'd like to thank the International Council on Human Rights, Peace and Politics for the platform and for the amazing opportunity to spotlight the state of women's rights across the globe. My speech will be confined more towards the state of women's rights in the global south, particularly South Africa, because I resided and lived in South Africa my whole life. This stems from my research, but also lived experience as a Black young woman who lived in the global south, specifically South Africa, for my whole life. South Africa is lauded for having one of the most progressive laws and policies intended to advance the rights of women living in the nation. The Constitution of South Africa guarantees the rights to equality and prohibits gender-based discrimination under Section 9, empowers everyone to live in dignity under Section 10, gives everyone the right to life under Section 11, and the right to bodily integrity, which also includes reproductive rights under Section 12, subsection 2. Moreover, the Commission of Gender Equality was established in 1999 and was brought about to give effect to Section 187 of the South African Constitution, which was to promote respect for gender equality and the protection, development, and attainment of gender equality across the land. Unfortunately, however, South Africa has also been criticized as having beautiful laws and beautiful jurisprudence that does not translate to the lived realities of women living in that land. And this is because there are alarmingly high rates of gender-based violence that makes a woman in South Africa more dangerous than living in a war-torn country. And that is a horrific thought. On the 18th of November 2024, South Africa's Human Sciences Research Council released its first national study on the gender-based violence prevalence in the country. According to the researchers, the data revealed deeply ingrained gender norms and power dynamics, with strong cultural reinforcement of traditional gender roles and a troubling acceptance of male aggression and dominance in the land. The study surveyed a sample of households in 1,000 communities across South Africa's 9 provinces. Of the women surveyed, more than 1 in 3, which roughly translates to about 36% of women, said that they experienced either physical or sexual violence at some point in their lives, while 24% of the sample surveyed reported experiencing violence by an intimate partner. The study also uncovered disturbing opinions held by men regarding gender roles. Around 15% of the men that were interviewed felt that a husband had the right to punish his wife for her wrongdoings. Almost 23% believe that a wife may not refuse to have sexual intercourse with her husband. Nearly 10% had the false idea that women are often to blame if they were raped. And 12% wrongly believe that if a woman does not physically resist during sexual intercourse, then it certainly cannot be rape. The scariest part of the report just mentioned is not the data in itself, but rather how it translates to one's reality as a woman living in South Africa currently. Every female I know and every female they know can personally testify that they know of at least one friend, one mother, sister, or daughter who has been sexually assaulted in their lifetime. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done in the global south in order to achieve gender equality, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. I believe that South Africa still has a long way to go, and I believe that true advancement of women's rights in the land is still possible. I've personally witnessed and been in the company of strong, resilient, powerful women who do not wait for a seat on the table, but rather they bring their own table themselves. And I've also been in the company of men that are readily available to advocate for and fight for women's rights. However, in order to reach true advancement of women's rights, conversations like these still need to continue to happen. There needs to be more discourse, more attention, and more advocacy needs to be brought to these issues, especially issues that are still prevalent in today's society. We cannot afford to remain silent. As the famous saying goes, this is a famous saying in South Africa, and it says, "You strike a woman, you strike a rock." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Praise, for presenting your thoughts, for presenting such a qualitative analysis of gender in South Africa. We are very glad to have you here. And so I suppose, we can begin with the Q&A. We can begin with discussions, and then once the question and answers are done, once discussions are over, I suppose we can have a moderator begin with the closing remarks. So I would just like to request everybody to turn on their cameras as opposed to our speakers so that we can have this very interactive session, which is what we've made this for. That's exactly why we're here. We're here to discuss issues. We are here to ask questions to each other. So please, the stage is yours. Anything you want to point out, anything you want to ask, you guys can go ahead. Please, begin. Does anybody have to say anything? Miss Praise, Miss Gurleen, Miss Aryan, Miss Camilla, does anybody want to say anything about what we've discussed today? Please go ahead.
I would like to intervene quick to first of all thank all the amazing speakers that joined us today. I think it was very interesting to hear about these three different perspectives because we talked about, you know, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, and then South Africa. So I think it was something very, very valuable to listen about because sometimes when we hear the news, we hear about what's happening in the world and it's usually major things and usually always the same things. And I think women rights, civil rights are major as well, but they're left on the side because they're considered not that interesting. So I think that you all gave us a very interesting aspect to reflect on and to analyze how in 2025 we still have to, you know, even if some prime ministers are women, even in Italy, there's the first prime minister woman ever, there are things that need to evolve more and more. And I thank you because I think this is a space of reflection and it was very interesting to reflect on those things. So I personally want to thank you even for participating, for your time. And I would like to ask to the amazing students who are taking part in the project Parwas that I know because they took part in my session a couple of weeks ago, and I see that a few of them are here. If you want to talk about this topic as well, if you have any question, or if you just want to reflect about, you know, women rights or just women in the country you're from. So if you want to, please, the stage is yours. Kutsia. Oh, yes, please, Malalai, go. Thank you.
So hello, can everyone hear me? So I wanted to thank you for the information you shared about your countries. It was kind of refreshing to know that you have taken steps to improve gender-based violence in many places. I'm sad to know that it exists in the first place. I want to talk about my country, Afghanistan, a little because I live in Afghanistan and I experience gender-based violence every single day. So I'd like to talk about it a bit and give you some information about my country as well. So 4 years ago, when the government hadn't changed yet, it was bad, not that bad. So there were some signs of gender-based violence in some places, but at least we could get education, go to universities, go to schools and stuff. But 4 years ago, the government changed and we were banned from going to schools, from having jobs or getting education. It was a very stressful situation for everyone, especially for girls, since in many places there were young girls who wanted to go out and study or provide their family with something by having a job, and it made us unable to do anything at all. So that's when some girls who were like me, who wanted to improve it, who didn't like the situation being banned, being tied in a rope that was we were unable to cut, we wanted to improve it. So we took some steps, for example, building organizations online. It was a great opportunity for girls who could study online in some places, like have meetings, talk about online schools, get some, talk about subjects, maybe math, something they couldn't get from outside world, like from the public. It was a great opportunity. Or some other people, they made other opportunities. For example, me myself, I teach at an academy at MILI, Muslim English Language Institute. That's a great opportunity for other girls, young girls, to come and study English as an international language, but soon they will be banned as well. So it shows that there's a huge gender-based violence in our country, gender inequality. Why is a man able to go out, get the education, or provide his family, while a girl cannot? So I want to take some steps further into this and try to at least improve a little by the help of other girls in Afghanistan. So overall, thank you for the information you shared. I was really happy to know that it was improving, at least it was getting lesser in countries. So overall, that was all about Afghanistan. I wanted to just share information so you will know about it as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Malalai, for sharing your insight with us. It's always, I think, precious to hear someone's experience because I think it's, everyone can talk about some countries, but when you hear about a first-hand experience, it always adds more depth and even it seems like it matters more. Like, thank you for sharing your experience with us. We value this a lot. Thank you. Do the other women from Project Parwas want to intervene? For example, Kutsia, Zoal, Marwa, would you like to say your opinion on the matter and talking about Afghanistan as well, if you want? You don't have to if you don't feel like it. This is a safe space and we don't force anyone to join. I can tell you quick about Italy, the situation in Italy. It's quite tricky, I'd say, because of course, thankfully, we have rights, we can study, we can work, we can drive, and so that is good. As I said, now the first prime minister ever is a woman. Not the first prime minister ever. Now there's a woman for the first time ever as a prime minister. Yet there is a story of gender-based violence that it's quite tricky. There's lots of domestic violence, for example. They are trying to sensibilize on the topic because many women are killed by their partners or their ex-partner or a family member. And we're talking about, for example, in 2024, 100 and plus women, and it is a lot of personal stories being interrupted abruptly by someone they loved because of jealousy or because of other stuff. There was, for example, this very tragic story about a genius girl who was graduating soon in engineering, and her ex-boyfriend just took her life right before the graduation. So she never got to graduate. Her life was taken when she was just 22, and it's full of tragic stories like this. So I think when we talk about Women's History Month, we should think about the rights, women's rights, civil rights. We should, just remember that it's something that all the world needs to work about, and just remember that everyone is deserving of rights. And at the same time, when we think about countries that are luckier on the rights, still there's a lot of gender-based violence. There's domestic violence and more topics that I think audiences or just people in general should be, sensitive about and should be educated about. So again, thank you all so much for participating. And I think since we intervened a little bit and we reflected on it, I would like to invite the second moderator for the closing remarks.
Good evening,
Adela.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank
Am
you.
I audible enough? Am I very clear enough? Can you hear me
Yes.
clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Camila. Thank you, Arnold. Thank you, Praise. Thank you, Golin. Thank you, Malala. Thank you to everyone that has spoken so far. It's been a very, very insightful discussion so far. And I think for everybody who has joined us, I'm so sure you must have learned one or two things with regards to this particular topic we're looking at. And my name is Tufail Adelakun. From Nigeria. I've throughout my life I've been doing research, and I have up to about 15 publications so far. And one of my publications, notably, I worked on gender, and the title was Exploring Gender Intersectionality in Internal Displacement, a case study of internally displaced women in 3 Nigerian states. And I was able to look at a case study of how women who are internally displaced, because there is a part in Nigeria known as Borno State that's been ravaged by the ongoing Boko Haram war. I know a couple of people must have been aware of this, and I was able to look at a case study of these settlements to look at how women have been affected in these communities, to look at their experience. And so far, so good. I think for me, sharing my insight on this topic, for me, women's rights, which encompasses the right to live free from violence and discrimination, are fundamental aspects of human rights, which are recognized by international organizations like United Nations. Um, it's recognized through platforms like Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, United Nations Women, which is the platform that was organized by the United Nations in 2010. And there's a very, very contemporary one, which is known as Sustainable Development Goals, about 17 of them. And as we speak right now, we are 5 years to the end of SDG, which is going to, by 2030, we expect that, according to SDGs 5, which is based on gender equality, we expect that the world will be a gender equal society. But I can tell you for a free that we are very, very, very far from the reality. But across the globe, I can, from research, from various studies, it is obvious that women still face discrimination on the basis of sex and gender. Gender equality underpins many problems which disproportionately affect women and girls, such as domestic and sexual violence. We have women across the globe that are facing low pay, lack of access to education. We all had the experience of people in Afghanistan, especially their women, who are not even entitled to go to school, just to review how they feel with regards to this particular context. And we can also see how inadequate healthcare is also a very, very big challenge that women still experience all over the world. You can see globally, it's even a research that was conducted. Globally, we have an average of 30% of all women who have been in a relationship who have experienced physical or and sexual violence committed against them by their partner. Women are more likely to be victims of sexual assault, including rape, and are more likely to be victims of so-called honor crimes. A recent figure has shown that women currently earn roughly around 77% of what men earn for the same work they do. This leads to a lifetime of financial disparity for women, preventing them from fully accessing independence and means of increased risk of poverty in their lives. Across the globe, women are facing harmful practices such as child marriage, which are stealing their childhood. And as we speak, we have about 15%, 15 million girls that are under the age of 18 that go through harmful child marriage every single year across the globe. And we have, this is more even political this time around, why we have more, yeah, we have women who have entered political positions in recent years, including through the use of special quotas. They still hold a mere 23.7% of parliamentary seats, which falls short of parity. The situation is much, much better in private sector, where women globally occupy less than a third of senior and middle management positions. And I can tell you for free, in Africa, for instance, we recently celebrated a country known as Namibia, where we had a woman who recently became a president of that country. And for the first time, we are seeing an administration in Africa that is made up of about 70% of women. And for me, when that news broke out, I was celebrating that. And I think we need to celebrate more giant steps like this. And we've had several platforms across the globe where these issues have been brought up. And we 1979, known as CEDAW, which is often considered as an international bill of rights for women, outlining fundamental rights and advocating for their protection. We also have we've had a platform like United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and Empowerment of Women through the United Nations Women, which was established in 2010. UN Women works to accelerate the United Nations goals on gender equality and women's empowerment. And lastly, we've had the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which it's aimed at achieving a more gender society, which focuses on achieving gender equality and empowering of all girls and women by the year 2030. And if you look at what has been done so far, we have about 5 years to go. And I can tell you, most especially in developing world, there's still a lot of gaps to be covered. Very recently, I think maybe this is going to be my last remark with regards to this context. In Nigeria, for instance, there is a very, very outburning issue that is on the table. There is a woman, a senator. In Nigeria, we have the figures is very, very terrible and very, very low with regards to women representation in politics. And as I speak, we had just because we operate a bicameral legislature in Nigeria, and a woman got suspended of her seat on the basis of her raising allegations against the Senate president, who was alleged to have sexually harassed that woman. And they did not even allow the woman. She presented a petition before the Senate. Unfortunately, this woman, she was suspended immediately. She brought that information to the floor of the parliament. And as I speak, this issue has really, really, really put the country on the wrong spot. And there is a lot of ongoing debate on how we need to do better. But I think I need to emphasize this fact because it's even part of what I've noticed so far. And I think I must say that, in fact, there's even a process that is going to recall her from her position and replace her with someone else. And unfortunately, this process is even being led by a woman. It's led by a woman, and that really, it's really terrible for me as a man because I thought we are now in a society where women should advocate for a better society for a fellow woman. Unfortunately, I've realized so far that women are even the enemies of their fellow women because it's even very obvious in this particular case for Nigeria because the people who are even leading the process of recalling, you see a lot of women coming out to speak on the fact that why are you just coming out to say this? Why have you kept silent all this while just to come today and start revealing all this information? These are comments you hear from a fellow woman. And I think for me, I must say that if we must go further, if we must achieve a more gender parity society, a better society for women, I think women must take the front seat and they must pioneer this discussion. And beyond the fact that we know that across the globe men have more roles to play, but I think if we must go further because we have less than 5 years to go, if we must achieve the 2030 goals as outlined by the United Nations. And I think for me, women must do better and they must stand for themselves. And I'm a very strong advocate for the he for she, and that's even a very critical part of what men must do because for me, I see it as a call on the world, and for men, we must come together and support women because it's not just to leave this debate for women. We just leave it on the day of International Day for the Girl Child, and that's when we start coming out to speak and we start being vocal about this. advocacy, we must continuously evaluate and educate, and at the same time advocate for all these gender rights, because to me, we can have a better society where women must be the pioneer of a better society, and we must give them a seat to stand for themselves. And this is why, as a man, I advocate for a better society. And I think at this point, I would strongly advocate for everybody that has joined this call, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, irrespective of your gender, we must respect the the position of women in society, and we must give um, women more position to speak for themselves. Because I believe societies that are getting it right, from what I've studied so far, from my research so far, societies that are doing well across the globe are societies where women are given a seat on their at the table, and we must continuously um, give them the opportunity to speak for themselves. Thank you so much to everyone across all borders that have joined us. And I think it's a very great pleasure to have joined this conversation. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Adela Kun. Before letting Ariane talk, and then we have to end the call in a few minutes, I would like to read Kutsia testimony, since she can't speak because she's having problems with their connection. She wrote down, women's rights in Afghanistan have faced significant challenges, especially in recent years. Since the Taliban regained control in August 2021, many rights that Afghan women had gained over the past 2 decades have been restricted. Here are some key areas affected. Education and work. Women and girls above 6th grade have been banned from attending schools and universities, and most female employees in government and NGOs have been dismissed or restricted to working in specific sectors like health. Thank you, Kutsia, for your testimony, and thank you even to Soman for talking to us about refugees and how they are a vulnerable group in the world, especially in Afghanistan. Also, thank you, Gurleen, for saying that you're not a Sri Lankan person per se, but you're based in Sri Lanka where you're doing your research. Thank you all so much. Ariane, I'll let you express your final thought in this moment. Oh, even Marwa, sorry, Ariane. Marwa wrote down, the situation of women in Afghanistan is not just a political issue, it is a human tragedy. Every closed school door, every silenced voice, and every shattered dream represents a life filled with potential that is being held back. Afghan women have always been strong. They have fought against oppression with resilience, hope, and an unbreakable spirit. Even in the darkest times, they continue to educate themselves in secret, write their stories, and dream of a future where they're not treated like this. Thank you so much, Marwa, for your testimony and for sharing it with us. Thank you, and we're so glad you're here. Thank you. Ariane, if you want to say something now, you can.
Yes, thank you, Camila, and for all the comments here in the chat box. And I'm really, I'm really I'm really like empathize on the experiences of women, and I like there's a lot of happening what's happening around the globe, and I'm truly this the words that we are saying right now, or the conversation that we have right now, it doesn't mean that we really understand what the experiences those women are having. It's just that I know that for some women, they gave up their hope, they gave up their dreams because of what's happening, because of their situation in their countries. And I do hope we could amplify the conversation that we have right now, and I do hope that we could at least spark um you know spark spark this kind of conversation, or that we could ripple this conversation around the globe. And especially right now that the women's rights in place, like in the United States, like it's clear that we have stepped back, and it's clear that the work is far from over, and I do hope we could sustain this partnership, and we could also share our resources and amplify marginalized voices. And I do hope that the stories that I see here will change. I do hope that you will see your dreams, like, you can really do achieve your dreams, not just give up on it. And as a woman, I really empathize, and I really like can feel like how how you know s- um woman, like it's a woman's energy. Like when a woman has given up, it's like really it's like a really deep, or it's telling that she has gone through so much. So I I hope we can create a future where women in everywhere can be safe, regardless of the circumstances, and that we can also lead, and we can. I hope we can do more than what the society tells us to do. So I think that's for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ariane. Thank you to all the speakers today, the moderators, the participants who shared their testimonies in the chat. Thank you all so much for participating. Thank you to the Council for creating this safe space. Thank you to Mr. Naman for helping a lot, moderating as well as recording the session. I declare this webinar officially closed. It was a pleasure to be here. I remind you that there will be a third and last webinar on Women's History Month on Monday, the 31st. I will not see you there, but there will be other coordinators from the Center of International Council of Human Rights, Politics and Peace and Politics, and I hope you can be there so that we continue this much needed conversation. So thank you so much to everyone, and see you soon.
Thank you to everyone once again, Ms. Kamila and our speakers. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The session has come to an end. Thank you.